I'm Rachelle Davis. I am with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and my ARP focuses on supporting positive youth identities of Black or African American children transracially placed. Within this presentation, I will cover information about myself, the lay of the land specific to MDHHS and Michigan's population by race, my PICO or research question, my action research project, the findings and strategy, as well as my overall reflection. I began my MPLD fellowship journey as a children's foster home licensing specialist in Allegan and Berry counties. I am currently a Children's Protective Services investigator in Kalamazoo County. This unanticipated position change presented a challenge that necessitated a pivot in the strategy I implemented for my action research project. As a Michigander, I feel compelled to share that I am a forever Michigan State University Spartan. Go Green. And lastly, I believe in documenting what is being done, as well as any adjustments made for improvements over time. And here we have the lay of the land as it relates to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and the state of Michigan. My roles as a licensing worker and a CPS investigator falls under the Children's Services Administration, or the CSA. And then the second is the Business Service Center. And then we have local offices. And as you can see with the map, we have the state of Michigan for MDHHS is broken up into 5 business service centers or regions. Business Service Center 1 is highlighted blue. The counties within BSC 2 are purple, BSC 3 yellow, BSC 4 green, and BSC 5 are the counties highlighted in orange. This graph depicts Michigan's general child population percentage by race versus the percentage of children in foster care in 2021. You can see that just under 50% of the children in foster care are white, but they represent almost 70% of the overall child population. However, if you look at Black children, they represent less than 20% of the general child population, yet almost 30% of the foster care population, a clear disproportionality. In reviewing adoption outcomes by race in Michigan for 2021, the percentage of Black children waiting for adoption is larger than the percentage of Black children adopted, whereas the percentage of white children waiting for adoption is smaller than the percentage of white children adopted, which indicates a disparity. My ARP focused on 2 counties in Michigan, Allegan and Berry, which were the counties I worked in as a licensing specialist. Allegan County is in orange and Berry is in brown. Berry is rural and Allegan is a mixture of rural and smaller cities. What is unique about these counties is that the foster and adoptive homes within Allegan and Berry are willing and able to take placement of larger sibling groups and or children with high needs. As a result, we have a high number of children placed in these counties who were removed from homes in other counties. This graph depicts the population by race percentages, both children and adults in Michigan, highlighted as dark green, Berry County, the red bar, and Allegan, the gold bar. The overall population in Michigan is predominantly white at 80%. In Berry County, 97% of its population is white and 96% in Allegan. The next largest race in Allegan and Berry counties is Hispanic, with 4% for Berry and 8% Allegan. 1% of Berry's population is Black and 2% of the population in Allegan is Black. Initially, the PICO or research question that I focused on included both child welfare staff and parents who foster and adopt. But due to my move to a new position in child welfare, we dialed back the ARP to focus more on staff. However, I initially collected data from foster and adoptive parents that I will be sharing within this presentation. And so the PICO as it stands is if child welfare staff receive training, including information on assessment and preparation of families to meet the cultural needs of foster children who are Black or African American, will this increase their knowledge and ability to provide the best support and supportive services for those children with considerations of racial awareness, multicultural planning, and survival skills? And so when collecting information for my ARP and understanding more about the research question, I focused on Franco, Stefansson, and Vonk, which each highlighted the importance of cultural competence and cultural understanding to transracially, transculturally placed foster and adoptive youth, as well as offered insights on how cultural identities of transracially, transculturally placed foster and adoptive youth are formed. The vital skill sets for transracial and transcultural foster and adoptive parents highlighted within those research articles included racial awareness, the large issue, multicultural planning, the colorization of their circle, survival skills, which is preparing your child for racial cognitive dissidence. And Stefansson highlighted cultural identity is strengthened through everyday interactions, daily social and cultural practices, and reinforcement by immediate family and friends. I worked as a licensing worker for 3 years in Allegan and Berry counties and started to see some trends within the families who adopted and fostered Black children. I was a part of a CSA work group that collected information on what resources the local offices use to support identities of children from marginalized communities. And from this, I found that each region did things differently. This work group did have some information specific to Allegan and Berry's efforts, but I wanted to gather more data on a local level to see if it matched what I saw on a national level. In order to collect the data, I worked with the PRES team to create a case review checklist, which I used to review 15 Allegan and Berry licensed foster and adoptive homes where a white parent was caring for a Black child or children, as well as adapted a tool from MPLD Cohort 3 fellow Ricardo Franco, which was the Transracial, Transcultural Self-Readiness Survey for foster, adoptive, and kinship parents that was disseminated to all Allegan and Berry MDHHS licensed foster, adoptive, and kinship parents who were willing to provide homes for Black children. Something that's important to note is that this pool of parents was all white, which isn't surprising based on the population by race percentages in Allegan and Berry counties that we reviewed in a previous slide. For the case review checklist, it took me approximately 1 hour on average to complete each of the 15 case reviews. The tool looked at indicators of cultural identity as it relates to positive identity formation, community type of the removal home, community type of the child's current placement home, and documentation of discussions that took place between workers and or parents and the child. The Transracial, Transcultural Foster Adoptive Kinship Parent Survey is based on the competencies listed by Vonk and adapted from MPLD Cohort 3 fellow Ricardo Franco's Transracial Adoption Parent Inventory. The changes made to the survey included it being adapted for foster parents and removed topics that were not a part of Vonk's 2001 framework. This survey was disseminated to 34 Allegan and Berry licensed transracial foster, adoptive, and kinship families. It took them on an estimated 15 to 20 minutes to complete, and it was 28 questions. The parents were offered an Amazon gift card for completing the survey. The survey was completed online, and out of the 34 families, 13 parents completed the survey. However, not all parents answered all questions. The findings from case reads of specific licensing and adoption reports indicated that licensing and adoption staff did not document assessed youth cultural characteristics gained through interviews with birth parents, resource parents, and or with the youth, or documented discussions with resource parents regarding multicultural family activities. A closer look into these findings from the case reads show that the licensing and adoption reports lack cultural indicators specific to the youth transracially placed, identified transracial, transcultural resource parents' willingness and openness to parent cross-culturally, but lack details on how this would be achieved, as well as the Child Welfare Licensing Report 4004 lack details regarding if multicultural family planning was occurring or was being demonstrated by resource parents. For the adapted survey, information about the survey includes the respondents were read each topic, issue, or situation. They selected a color, either green, yellow, or red, based on where they felt that they were as it relates to that topic, issue, or situation in their adoption journey. The 4 areas of the inventory included information, feelings, resources, and openness. And foster parents and adoptive parents were encouraged not to focus on what they believed the correct answer was, but rather where they felt they were at the time of completing the survey. So some findings from the survey in regard to the statement, keeping some type of contact with the child's biological family, previous foster parents, and or significant adults in the life of the child is important for his or her psychosocial development. 8 of 9 participants who answered this question indicated being informed about this topic, open to keep learning new skills or changing their actions, and having access to applicable resources. 5 of the 9 participants who answered this question indicated they've explored their feelings about this topic, and 4 of 9 of the participants indicated feeling that they needed to dig a little deeper into their feelings and attitudes about this topic. For the statement, transracially adopt children may be treated unkindly or unfairly because of racism. 8 of 9 participants who answered this question indicated that they had already explored their feelings about this topic and having access to applicable services. 3 of 9 participants who answered this question indicated not being aware or sure they had all the information needed about the topic. And 2 of 9 of the participants who answered this question indicated not knowing what they needed to learn to deal with this topic. For the topic statement, white parents have privileges associated with their race, and these privileges will not be transferred to their adopted child of color. 7 of 8 participants who answered this question indicated that they are open to keep learning new skills or changing their actions regarding this topic. 4 of 8 participants who answered this question indicated that they've already explored their feelings and are informed about this topic and have access to applicable resources. 4 of 8 participants who answered this question indicated having to dig deeper into their feelings and attitudes about this topic and not having access to applicable resources. 2 of 8 participants who answered this question indicated that they never heard nor thought about this topic. And 1 of the 8 participants indicated not knowing what they need to learn in order to deal with this topic. For the topic statement, I live in or would be willing to relocate to a neighborhood where my adopted child is not the only child of color. 4 of 8 participants who answered this question indicated being informed or open to learning new skills or changing their actions regarding this topic and having access to applicable resources. 4 of 8 participants indicated having to dig deeper into their feelings and attitudes about this topic and not having access to applicable resources. 3 of the 8 participants indicated that they explored their feelings about this topic. 3 of 8 participants also indicated not being sure that they had all the information needed and do not know what they need to know to learn in order to deal with this topic. And 1 of 8 participants who answered this question indicated that they've never heard nor thought about this topic, feel uncomfortable exploring their feelings or attitudes about this topic, and do not wish to learn new skills or change in order to deal with this topic. After reviewing the data, I developed a 7-minute micro-learning pilot video introducing the proposed strategy to address disproportionalities and disparities in Michigan for Black and/or African American children in care. This video, the pilot video, is the first of 4 training videos entitled Supporting Positive Youth Identities of Black or African American Children Transracially Placed, Competence and Practice for Licensing and Adoption Staff, and is designed specifically for licensing and adoption staff in Michigan. The video has been completed, but has not yet been piloted. The video is publicly available on YouTube, but the link has not been disseminated to Michigan staff at this time. The objectives of the video was for licensing and adoption staff to recognize the significance of addressing the cultural needs of Black or African American children placed in transracial foster and adoptive homes to provide services that promote their positive identities, acquire knowledge on effectively documenting and assess cultural characteristics and needs of Black or African American children placed in transracial foster and adoptive homes, and for staff to acquire knowledge on effectively documenting, assess needs of transracial resource parents of Black or African American children. I will now play a snippet of the 7-minute pilot video.
In the research article, Cultural Competence for Transracial Adoptive Parents, M. Elizabeth Bach utilized information obtained from an extensive review of literature and feedback from both experts and parents to expound upon the conceptual definition of cultural competence for transracial, transcultural adoptive parents by presenting this concept as a 3-part definition via the constructs of racial awareness, multicultural planning, and survival skills, while also describing the process of putting this concept into practice. The proposed strategy of addressing the specific disproportionality and disparity of Black or African American children in care, as reviewed in previous slides, is to apply Bach's 3-part definition of cultural competence to practice. Bach identifies racial awareness as a person's awareness of how the variables of race, ethnicity, culture, language, and related power status operate in one's own and others' lives, to include an understanding of the dynamics of racism, oppression, and other forms of discrimination. Multicultural planning as the creation of avenues for transracially, transculturally placed foster and/or adoptive children to learn about and participate in their culture of birth. And survival skills as the recognition of the need and the ability of parents to prepare their children of color to cope successfully with racism. Continue to part 2, where we will delve deeper into the topic of racial awareness and explore practical ways to apply this concept within licensing and adoption roles.
So the findings or the implementation strategy proposed would be to continue to conduct case file reviews, host a presentation for foster and adoptive parents given by an individual with lived experience, as well as develop a support group for parents to discuss how to incorporate children's birth identities into their current lives on an ongoing basis. Some of the challenges and limitations included the low number of parents who completed the survey. So again, the survey was disseminated to 34 families and only 13 parents completed the survey. Another challenge was my unexpected job change and supervisor change that resulted in the need to adapt the action research project. And the new job is crisis oriented and made it very difficult to set aside time for my action research project, as well as difficulties knowing how to organize and analyze the collected data that I had gathered. The MPOD impact on a personal and professional growth, it provided me with a consistent boost of pride and confidence in my abilities and values and perspectives, provided me with a different perspective as it relates to self-reflection of my strengths and areas of growth. It impacted how I show up at the table with other leaders, as well as built a network of uplifting support, encouragement, and collaboration. The program has left a lasting imprint on how I lead and show up. The skills that I gained, relationships built, and lessons learned will continue to shape my growth in child welfare. And it genuinely has renewed my sense of commitment to advocating for underrepresented communities and driving positive change in child welfare. And here are the references that I utilized for my action research project. And thank you.